Hello friends, welcome to the Anatomy Hub. Today we will study about the special sense and their pathways, the part 3. So here we will discuss the remaining lesions of the optic tract and the visual pathways and the sites of various lesions that affecting to the visual system. Along with that we will study the visual reflex. Okay, so let's start here. So as you can see here in this picture that there are so many lesions that already we have discussed, like lesion at the retina, the same side, lesion at the optic nerve, lesion at the optic chiasma, laterally lesion at the medial side of the optic chiasma, okay, and lesion at the optic tract. Okay, so all these things we have already discussed in our previous lecture. Please, if you have missed that, please go and watch that video. But here we'll talk about the first order neuron. Okay, so the second order neuron and the third order neuron, what is that? So the first order neuron that actually carrying the visual sensations, uh, that is mainly the bipolar cells. So for that reason we have to go to the previous slide. You may remember this picture that here you will find the bipolar neurons, and here you will find the ganglionic cells and their axons. Okay, so the first order neurons are those neurons which carries the visual sensations. They are mainly the bipolar cells of the retina. So they dendrites, okay, they synapse with the photoreceptors, means your rods, and also with the cones, and their axons, they are with their axons along with the dendrites, they synapse with the dendrites of the ganglionic cells. So here all these fibers, these are the first order neuron. If we will talk about the second order neuron, then the second order neuron that comprises your ganglionic cells. So they are actually multipolar neurons, uh, but authors they are demanding that ganglionic cells, they are the only cells which is present inside the retina and which has the multipolar neurons. That's why they are considering the ganglionic cells as the multipolar neuron, or along with the second order neurons. So here you can see these ganglionic cells whose axons that run along the optic nerve, okay, towards the optic chiasma, where you will find the fibers from the nasal half of the retina that cross to the opposite side, that you can see here. So I have already described this thing in our previous videos, to the opposite side of, and that travel through the opposite optic tract to terminate at the opposite side of the lateral geniculate body. So the fibers from the temporal half that you can see over here, that remain uncrossed, right, in the optic chiasma, and that run in the ipsilateral side of the optic tract to reach and to terminate at the ipsilateral side of the geniculate body. So the fibers from the macula lutea, uh, they actually behaves in the exactly same manner only. So from this area, from the axons of the ganglionic cells up to the termination of your lateral geniculate body, these fibers are known as the second order neuron. Then the cell bodies that is present at the lateral geniculate body, uh, and their axons are known as your third order neurons, okay, or you can say the tertiary neurons. So the cell bodies of third order sensory neuron, they are mainly located in the geniculate body, and their axons, they form the optic radiations that you can observe over here, and already we have discussed about this Mayer's loop and this the lower fiber and the upper fiber is a geniculocalcarine tract that already we have discussed. So these axons and these optic radiations that projects towards the visual cortex, that is known as your tertiary neurons or the third order neurons. Now come to these clinical points over here, how will correlate with these lesions with the uh, visual pathway, that we'll discuss right now. Already I have discussed up to the fourth lesion and also we have discussed about the fifth lesion. Today we'll give some rapid revision of that, and we'll concentrate on the area number or the lesion number 6 and 7 mainly. So here you can see the lesion number 1, that is actually injury of the optic nerve, that is one side, okay, that result the total blindness of the same side eye, okay. But if you will consider the area number 2, that is mainly due to the tumor or any carcinoma that develops through the pituitary gland and that will proceed forward, then it will just damage the cross fibers, means the nasal fibers, nasal half of both the retinae, that will be interrupted. So the result will be the bitemporal, that you can observe here, bitemporal heteronymous hemianopia, okay. So this type of vision also known as the tunnel vision. Now come to this lateral side, that already we have discussed, only the rapid revision. So if you will find a lesion at the lateral side of the optic chiasma, that means due to the aneurysm or any occlusion due to the artery, internal carotid artery, very close related to this one. That's why if the destruction will be there at the lateral part of the optic chiasma on one side, that may occur the aneurysm of the internal carotid artery or anything else that produces a unilateral, you can see here, because they are the uncrossed fibers, okay, and they are going towards the, so here you can see the fibers, actually the temporal fibers, they will be damaged, right. So you will find the unilateral temporal hemianopia on the same side of the lesion. So in if you will find the lesion at the optic tract, okay, and along with the geniculocalcarine tract, right. So here you will find if the complete destruction will be there through the optic tract or to the geniculocalcarine tract, okay, uh, on one side, that will result the blindness in opposite side or opposite half of the field of vision. If means you'll find the nasal field of ipsilateral eye and temporal field of the contralateral eye, okay. So this type of defect that can be termed as right or left homonymous hemianopia, okay. Now come to here the area number 6, okay. So if you will find a lesion involving the visual cortex that produces the blindness on the opposite half of the vision, that you can see over here, and this will be your homonymous hemianopia with sparing of the macular vision. So already I have told you, if you will go more posteriorly, it will affect to the macular region. If you will come little bit anteriorly, it will be your perimacular region, and if you go more anteriorly, then it will cause your, what is that, your monoocular lesions. Okay, so if you will find the lesion over here at the most anterior part of the visual cortex, okay, then you will find that there will be opposite side monoocular lesion will be there, that will spare the macular region and the opposite half of the visual field. So this type of lesion, that is known as the visual cortex, which produces the blindness in opposite half of the field of the vision, that is the homonymous hemianopia with sparing of your macular vision. So if you find a lesion at the area number 7, so here you can see the destruction of the upper tip of the calcarine sulcus, okay, on one side, that produces the visual loss in the lower quadrant of the opposite field of the vision. So that will be known as your contralateral inferior quadrantic enopia. Remember, the upper fibers or the upper geniculocalcarine fibers, they are responsible for the lower vision. Okay, that means if you are looking straight, then if something is going at the lower side, then that can be visible through the upper fibers. If these fibers will be lost, then the lower vision will be lost. That means if anything will go near your foot area, you cannot see that. If you will find the lower fibers, mainly the temporal fibers or the Meyer's fibers, if that fibers will be lost, then you will lost the upper vision. Okay, so here you can see these are the upper fibers, uh, the area number 6 I have here I have including. So the upper fibers lost means you lost the lower vision. Okay, if you lost the lower fibers, then you lost the upper vision. Okay, so the destruction of this lower lip of this calcarine sulcus on one side, that will produce the visual loss in superior quadrant of the opposite field of vision, that will be your contralateral superior quadrantic enopia. Okay, so now here you have to just remember one thing, that the temporal lobe vision, that is through the Meyer's loop, okay, that is actually the Meyer's loop of geniculocalcarine tract on one side, that causes the defect in superior quadrant of the opposite field of the vision. Okay, so the superior quadrantic enopia will be there. Okay, so if you find the lesions anterior to the geniculate body, that also interrupts the fibers responsible for the pupillary light reflex. Okay, now we will see the visual reflex. Okay, so the visual reflex, or you can say the light reflex or the pupillary reflex. Okay, so when a light is shown to one eye, normally the pupils of both the eyes will constrict. Okay, so the constriction of pupil upon which the light is shown, that will be termed as the direct light reflex. And the constriction of the pupil of other eye, even though no light will be fell upon the that particular eye, then that will be termed as a indirect or the consensual light reflex. Okay, so this constriction will be your direct light reflex, and this constriction will be your indirect or consensual light reflex. So the pathways of this light reflex, that we'll discuss right now. So the visual impulses, okay, that travel through the optic nerve and towards the optic chiasma and towards the optic tract to terminate in the pretectal nucleus that you can observe over here at the midbrain. So then these impulses from the pretectal nucleus, they will pass to the parasympathetic nucleus, that is your Edinger Westphal nucleus, okay, uh, of the third cranial nerve of both the side, that you can observe over here, okay. Then the efferent limb means the impulses from the Edinger Westphal nucleus that pass bilaterally, that you can observe over here and the here through the oculomotor nerve to the ciliary ganglion, okay. So the postganglionic parasympathetic fibers from the ciliary ganglion, that will travel along the short ciliary nerve to supply the sphincter pupillae muscles of the iris, that leads to constriction of the pupils of both the eyes, okay. So the afferent fibers and the efferent fibers, or you can say the afferent limbs and the efferent limbs of light reflex, they are just I have make a chart over here to make you understand that first the light stimulus will be come towards the eye, then that will go through the, that impulse will go to the optic nerve, and from the optic nerve it will go towards the optic tract of the opposite side. Then from the optic tract it will relay over the pretectal nucleus that is present at the midbrain, and from the pretectal nucleus the fibers will relay over the Edinger Westphal nucleus, that is the parasympathetic nucleus of third oculomotor nerve. Then from the Edinger Westphal nucleus the axons will come through the oculomotor nerve towards the ciliary ganglion, and at the ciliary ganglion they will just synapse over there, and the postganglionic fibers through the short ciliary nerve it will reach at the sphincter pupillae. So this is your afferent limb and this is your efferent limb. Now we'll see the accommodation reflex. So what is this accommodation reflex, and what are their pathways? So the accommodation reflex, that is when the eyes that will be focused from a distant to a near object, then three reactions will be takes place, that is the constriction of the pupils, thickening of the lenses, and the convergence of both the eyeballs, okay. So the constriction of the pupils due to the action of your sphincter pupil to restrict the light waves to the thickest central part of the lens, and the thickening of the lens will be occur due to the contraction of the ciliary muscles to increase the refractive index of the lens. Then the convergence of both the eyeballs, that will be due to the contraction of the medial recti muscles to bring about the convergence of the ocular axis. So these three reactions together that constitute the accommodation or the near reflex. So here we will see the pathways of the accommodation reflex. So the afferent limb, that is the visual impulses that travel through the optic nerve, optic chiasma, optic tract, and towards the lateral geniculate body, and the optic radiation to the visual cortex. So from the visual cortex the impulses that they will reach to the frontal eye field through the association fasciculus and the superior longitudinal fasciculus. Then we will see after this afferent limb, the efferent limb will start. So this efferent limb from the frontal eye field, the corticonuclear fibers project to the oculomotor nerve nuclei of both the sides. From here, the impulses travel through the oculomotor nerve, or you can say the third nerve, to supply to the three muscles. Okay, so these three muscles are the sphincter pupillae muscle, the medial rectus muscle, and the ciliary muscles. So these muscles are the muscles of your eyeballs whose active action is needed for the accommodation. The afferent and the efferent limbs of accommodation reflex are just shown here in this table so that you can understand the pathways. So here you have to notice one thing, that since all the muscles responsible for the accommodation, they are supplied by the oculomotor nerve. The oculomotor nerve is often termed as the nerve of accommodation. So here we will discuss some clinical correlations. Since the accommodation is an active process and that will involve a muscular effort, so watching of television or reading for a prolonged period of time, that may be tiring the muscles, and that may produce the headache due to the muscular fatigue. So here we have completed whole over the visual pathway and the lesions, visual reflex, visual accommodation uh, in a complete package with three video series, that is the visual pathway, the lesions of visual pathway part 2, and the lesions and the visual reflex in part 3. So thanks for watching. Please like, share and comment for the new videos.